Hi. I got Rainy in here with me right now. So for context, I'm still recording this about the week after that he had the seizures, so he's still a little bit, still getting used to the meds and stuff like that. So he's a little bit like extra roaming around of the house and hey, come on. See? Look. But he doesn't want to get up on the bed. And he's being very very lethargic still and stuff like that. So, hi, what's the matter? Did you want out? Or you just want me to keep petting you while I talk? I can do that. So, this is my second Pixar couples video. This one is going to be going over the non-human couples that we see throughout Pixar. And ranking them. Again, the same criteria applies. They have to be ones that we see actually kind of being a couple. So, as I said, Dory's parents are not going to be on this one. And not really, I mean, like, for the most part, it's mostly, like, animals and stuff like that. And, machines, Eve and Wally and stuff like that are on the list. Of course, they are. We'll see if he wanders back in at any point in time. So, first one on the list, or well, kind of bottom of the list, top of the list, goes from least favorite couple down to most favorite couple. Doesn't mean I don't like the ones that are, that I start off with, but still. So first up, we have Marlin and Coral, who are, of course, from Finding Nemo. Technically, they're from the Finding Nemo franchise, but Coral doesn't really end up getting mentioned, I don't think, in the second movie. So, Marlin and Coral, we see them at the beginning of Finding Nemo. They're, of course, a very happy couple. They just had, like, 1,000 eggs or however that ends up working. Don't ask me. I don't remember how many eggs they had. There's a lot of them. Only Nemo survives. But the reason they're on the list is because we do see them acting as a couple, flirting and stuff like that. We see that Marlin tried to use the whole, hey, I think I got a hook in my mouth. Do you think you can help me with that? That old line. Hey, fish have to have different pickup lines than we do, I would assume. Although I did find out very recently that this technically doesn't have a whole lot of bearing to do on this, but it does have to do with ocean life and, I guess, romance. There is apparently a species of shark, don't ask me which one, I don't remember, that does not mate until it is 100 years old. And I guess they live to be like 400 years old. So part of me wants to say it was the Greenland shark, but I don't remember. I heard that on the radio and it sounded interesting and it somewhat applied to this and fish trying to flirt with each other. But yeah, we see Marlin and Coral, of course, being like this cute little couple at the beginning of the movie, and they just moved into their new house and all that fun stuff. And then the barracuda shows up, and then, of course, Coral dies trying to protect their eggs. And then, of course, Marlin finds Nemo and ends up, of course, raising Nemo and naming him the way that Coral wanted to name him. The remnants of course, losing Coral stay with, Marlin, the same way that losing Ellie stayed with Carl throughout the course of Up. With Marlin, it's, of course, he still has Nemo, and, of course, he wants to keep Nemo safe and everything. And eventually Marlin kind of has to not let go of what happened with Coral, but learn that he has to keep going, that he can't just focus on the bad stuff. Which, of course, he does by the end of the first movie and again throughout the second movie. Next up on the list, we have Henry and Ida, who are from The Good Dinosaur. They are the two parent dinosaurs in that. The two parent brachiosaurs, long necks, whatever you want to refer to them as. And we do kind of see them a little bit as a couple at the beginning of the movie, in regards to, the way that they interact before the eggs hatch and stuff. And of course, we see them, small bits of, flirting and stuff like that throughout the course of the movie up until Henry's death. And of course, again, losing Henry, of course, causes quite a bit of strain on Ida. as does anytime someone loses a spouse, particularly in those very harsh circumstances that happen there. Um, so we do see that. Not really too much else we get there. We don't get a whole lot more with them, but I do kind of like them as a couple. Next up, we have Laurel and Colt from Onward. They're not human, so they're on the non-human list. They are technically aliens slash fantasy world people. Um, so Laurel is, of course, the mother of the two main boys in the movie. Oh God, Ian and Barley. And of course, she was, she is the widow of their father and stuff like that. Her and her husband loved each other very, very much. And over the last couple of years, it seems that she has started to have a relationship with Colt, who is this police officer in town, who has issues with Barley and stuff like that. And of course, throughout the course of the movie, we do kind of see them, flirting at the beginning of the movie and stuff like that. And of course, he wants to keep her safe and stuff like that when everything starts going down with the boys. And then she just shows up like a badass mom she is, with a sword and a cut and the chimera, trying to fight the giant stone school dragon, which is just awesome. And then of course, we see them at the end of the movie together, and he's supportive of her going off and I guess doing a little bit more adventuring on her own. We don't see a whole lot else of them. I would comment on the marriage that we see between Laurel and the boy's father, but we don't really see that much of it. We see a tiny little bit in pictures. And the thing that I point out is that Colt is not attempting to try to replace their father. He knows that's not something that he can do, and it's not something that's his prerogative. He just wants to try to be friends with the boys and, of course, make their mom happy. And the boys see that Colt makes their mom happy by the end of the movie, so they're like, yeah, he's fine. Not too much else with that. Next up, we have our first couple here from the Toy Story franchise, and that would be Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. So, of course, Mr. Potato Head, of course, is, introduced quite well the first movie, and then at the end of the first movie, they find out that there's a Mrs. Potato Head doll, and then, of course, by the second movie, they're together and stuff. We see them throughout the course of the second movie, and then into the third movie, and a couple of the other shorts that happen, and such. So we do get a fairly good, setup of their dynamic. Also, just they're voiced by two great people that did such a great job as Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. I love them. May they both rest in peace. I think Toy Story 4, was released posthumously on both of them. But that happens, unfortunately. And I know a lot of the stuff, I think for some of them was like archive footage that they had from deleted scenes or different stuff like that they didn't use for the second and the third movie and stuff like that. But of course we see Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head just throughout the whole course of that. And of course they're kind of just this slightly higher up on the list because I had Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head toys when I was a kid, or my daycare had them and we would play with them and stuff like that. So yeah, something I'm familiar with. Next up, we have Monsters, Inc. We have Mike and Celia. Mike Wazowski and Celia. I think we get a name on her, but I don't remember what her last name is. I didn't write it down. So Mike and Celia. I have Mike on the shirt. Celia's not on the shirt, unfortunately. Mike is, of course, like the little Cyclops thing. Celia is, of course, based on a Medusa monster. And of course, we see them flirting throughout the beginning of the Monsters, Inc. movie, and we see them just having fun there. And, he's taking her on the nice date and everything to the nice restaurant. And, everything happens, unfortunately, horribly at the restaurant, where she ends up having to be sanitized or whatever the case is because of the human. And we see how angry she is at Mike. Not at all blaming her at this at all. I do not blame Celia for being angry at Mike. But I do like how when she realizes what's going on, when she sees Boo and she realizes that Mike's not lying, that she helps them, of course, with trying to distract Randall. And, she's, just this helpful one that she helps with trying to capture Waternoose and Randall and everything. So I like that we see that with Celia. And of course, the end of the movie is, of course, like a year later or whatever the case is, where they're, both very happy, and, Mike's very set into his, job and everything like that at Monsters, Inc. as part of one of the CEOs or whatever. And of course, throughout the Monsters at Work miniseries that they did, we see, Celia and Mike interact various times there, which are kind of adorable. I don't know how canon I consider Monsters at Work, but I think they're adorable, so I'm just going to leave them in there and it's fine. But we get like some nice setups there for Mike and Celia. They're just a cute couple. And I love her little, her snake hair, how it like, she's like, oh, I was thinking of getting it cut. And he's like, no, I like your hair long. And the snakes are like, yes, we like him. Please don't cut us. I'm like, that would be a very odd way of having to deal with that. If every time you get a haircut, you're chopping off. Oh, God, no. No. Next up, our next Toy Story couples, we have Barbie and Ken. Which, yes, I am very much interested in seeing the new Barbie movie when it comes out with Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. I'm like, yeah, I'm interested in that. It looks fun. I was the Barbie kid growing up, very much so. I had several Barbie dolls. I still have several of them. They're just in storage because I can't quite bring myself to get rid of them yet. Someday I will, probably, but I just haven't. I had Barbies that I would get for Christmas and stuff like that. So Barbie and Ken have a high place in my heart. And, I liked the Barbie animated movies that they did. Well, I liked some of them, not all of them. But yeah, I like Barbie and Ken in general. Barbie and Ken that we get in the movie, and basically just in Toy Story 3, and then the one or two of the shorts that they're in. The vacation short that they did. Pretty much those are what we get for Barbie and Ken, and I really like what they do with that because it's just like Barbie and Ken meet at the daycare, and they're instantly smitten with each other, and I love it. And Ken has like the Barbie's dream house and everything like that, and he, he doesn't like reel Barbie in, but he's like, please stay here with me, and she's like, yes. And the rest of the toys are just like, yeah, go for it, it's fine. Being supportive of that. And, they're just really happy together. And then she finds out that Ken is trying to hold her friends hostage and everything like that what Ken's doing to her friends. And she, stands up for her friends and stays with them. And then, of course, she tricks Ken, which I just find adorable, how she tricks him into taking her into the dream house again and, like, showing him his closet, excuse me, with all of the different outfits. I just find that that's a hilarious way of just referencing all of this stuff for Ken. That there's all of these different outfits that happen with Ken and, Barbie's outfits. I think some of those are in there as well. And I'm like, okay, whoever donated this to Sunnyside or continuously donated a bunch of this stuff to Sunnyside did a very good job of taking care of all of this stuff, because some of it's like very classic Barbie stuff that they're referencing in the movie, which I just find so funny. Because I've watched a couple of documentaries about Barbie and Ken, just kind of like, I guess, preparing myself for the Barbie movie and stuff like that, but just because it was kind of fun to do, learning about the history of the dolls and stuff like that. And, Barbie has gone through many different redesigns over the years. Same thing with Ken and everything like that. And, like, all of their additional friends. But I love the fact that, like, Barbie tricks Ken into giving her a fashion show. And it's just this funny scene of just, like, him trying on all of these different fun outfits. And then he walks out and she's not there. And then she, like, tackles him and, like, pins him to the floor. And then she ties him up on a paddle board for, paddleball board, which is just funny. And then she interrogates him, which just makes it even more funny. And she starts, interrogating him and torturing him by, like, ripping the clothes apart. And he's just like, no, it's fine. It's fine. And then he snaps at one point and he's like, okay, fine. This is what happened. This is what they did. Here's how it works. This is what they did to Buzz. And before, all the rest of the, Barbie and everything, when Barbie and the rest of the crew are trying to escape, of course, Lotto stops them. And, Ken shows up there and he's still in his underwear. And he's just like, no, Lotto's like, she's just a Barbie. They're a dime a dozen. There's dozens of them. There's hundreds of them out there like her. And Ken just looks across like the dumpster at Barbie. And he's like, not like her. And I'm just like, good answer, Ken. Good answer. And, Ken chooses to, go with Barbie, but they end up staying at Sunnyside, of course, and like being the new ones that run Sunnyside since Lotto's gone. Currently tied to the front of a truck at this point in time. But, Barbie and Ken are the ones that take care of Sunnyside now. They're kind of the ones that keep it going, keep the tourists happy and stuff like that, and keep it a much better place than how Lotto had it. And of course, in the Barbie, in the vacation one that they did, the short that they did, where Barbie and Ken end up at Bonnie's room because Bonnie's going to Hawaii. My dad's sister went to Hawaii recently. They had a great time. As far as I know, no toys tried to sneak home with them or sneak off with them to go to Hawaii. Although, side note, I had debated about sending this with them because, of course, Stitch, Hawaii. Lilo and Stitch. This is Stitch in a Hawaiian shirt. I debated about sending this with him and say, hey, take this with you when you go to Hawaii and then bring it back so it's been to Hawaii. They also brought me a shirt back from Maui, which was very nice of them. Apparently they didn't find any Lilo and Stitch merchandise there. Or at least if they did, it wasn't considered, I guess, cheap enough or something like that to get me, which is perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. Someday I will go to Hawaii myself. No idea when. For side note, they went to visit my aunt and uncle that have like a timeshare out there, so that's how they were able to go there. Back to Barbie and Ken. And we get this great little thing where we find out that Barbie and Ken haven't had their first kiss yet, and Ken wants to have this perfect vacation with Barbie so they can have their first kiss on the beach at sunset. And we just get this great thing where all the rest of the toys are just like, oh, we'll help you with this. And they help like setting up this nice little vacation and everything like that. And then, of course, Barbie's the one that handles the first kiss where they go outside and they're in like their snow parkas and stuff. And they end up like, kissing on the porch at sunset covered in snow. And then they fall through the snow and get trapped in the ice and they have to be thawed out, which is just funny. We never get anything for Barbie or Ken in the fourth movie or any of the additional shorts as far as I'm aware. And unless Toy Story ends up doing like a Toy Story 5, don't know how they do that. But they could attempt it. I don't know. But yeah. Or if they ever did like another short where like Barbie finds out that Woody's gone, but they found Bo again. Woody and Bo are coming up on the list, as you can probably guess. Next up, we have Flick. No, over here. Flick and Atta from A Bug's Life, which is... I actually really like A Bug's Life, and I think I mentioned that when I did the review for it several months ago. I really like it. I think it's actually a really good movie. In regards to how that Flick and Atta is, of course, the princess of... of the ant colony, and Flick is just this little worker ant that like is like this very inventive character and everything like that. And of course, they do not get along well at the beginning of the movie, and eventually we do see them slowly getting along better and better and stuff, and kind of falling for each other as happens. And I think Flick just already had a crush on Atta to begin with. I think that was already there. It was just Atta hadn't like thought of Flick in that way, and eventually it does get to that point. We have these cute little moments where like their antennae get like tangled with each other at times, which is funny. There's some other good bits that happen there with the two of them where they're just like happy and having fun. And then we have, of course, the moment where Flick tries to stand up to Hopper and he ends up getting beaten down by Hopper, and Atta shows up and stands up to protect Flick. And, of course, this leads the rest of all of the ants to standing up to fight against all of the grasshoppers, along with the help of the circus bugs. And, so we have that great little bit there that happens. And, of course, by the end of the movie, we have it that, Flick and Atta are definitely together. Atta is, of course, fully like the queen of the ant colony at this point in time, and Flick is, well, given logic of the way that ant hills work, I don't think that Flick would technically be her king, because ant hills don't have kings, they just have queens. I don't know exactly how that works. We're never going to follow up on that. Bug's Life hasn't really appeared in anything else, unfortunately, beyond a slight cameo blooper reel in Toy Story 2. But, you know, Flick and Ada, and I just really like them as a couple. They are kind of the couple of, like, the pretty sophisticated girl and, like, the nerdy guy and stuff like that. And I kind of like those couple setups. I think they're cute that they do with that. Next up, we have another Toy Story franchise. Actually, the next three are all Toy Story franchise couples. Good. Or no, well, one of them is, then it's not, then it's Toy Story again. So, we have Toy Story franchise. We have Buzz and Jessie. Buzz Lightyear and Jessie the Cowgirl. Of course, they're, you know, Buzz is introduced in the first movie. Jessie's introduced in the second movie. They don't really meet that much until like partway through the second movie, a good chunk into the second movie, and at the end of the second movie at Toy Story 2, you know, we do start to see them. Buzz clearly just starts to develop a crush on Jessie, and it's adorable. And sometime by the end of, oh no, I remember what it is that kind of like sets him off. It's like Buster has to go outside and they need someone to open the door, and Jessie just like hops into action and like goes through like the Hot Wheels roller coaster thing and does basically Buzz's version of flying and like lets the dog out, and Buzz is just like, oh. Like Buzz is instantly impressed by that, and I love it. Buzz is in love. And sometime into the third movie, Buzz and Jessie are kind of a couple at this point in time. They're not, I don't think they're full on a couple, but they're definitely like on the road to being a couple. And, you know, I mean, it's been quite a while, so they're probably a couple by this point in time. But of course, all the toys are sad because Andy's not playing with them anymore. I'm sorry to my own toys. I'm sorry. And eventually, of course, throughout the course of that movie of Toy Story 3, we do see Buzz and Jessie have these different variants where, like, when Buzz gets turned into, you know, gets set back to factory settings and such, that he still finds Jessie cute, and he keeps trying to resist her, which is just funny. And then when Buzz gets turned into his Spanish mode, he keeps, of course, flirting with Jessie, and she's, like, slightly bewildered by it. And, of course, Buzz thinks that Woody and Jessie are together. And he's, like, tries to, you know, stop Woody. And then, of course, he tries to, of course, impress Jessie at various points in time. And, of course, there is the great moment where they're in the giant trash area. And Buzz ends up, you know, I don't remember if he's still in Spanish mode, Buzz, at this point in time, but he, like, picks up Jessie and he's, like, running with her, trying to get her to safety and stuff. And then, of course, you know, I think this is where they get landed on by the television or something, and Buzz does get reset to his normal settings. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, when Jessie's talking to Woody, when she say goodbye to Woody, she's like, by the way, I know about Buzz's Spanish mode now, so that'll be helpful. That'll be nice. My, what? And we just have that great bit. There's not too much else that we get with Buzz and Jessie. I mean, we see them a little bit in, like, some of the different shorts and stuff like that, and the specials that they did. Not too much, but a little bit. And then we do get some bits where in Toy Story 4, there's not too much that delve into, like, Buzz and Jessie, but there's snippets that we see, I think. Same thing that happens with Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Next up, we have Lightning McQueen and Sally Carrera from the Cars franchise. So, Lightning and Sally are, of course, you know, they meet when Lightning ends up in Radiator Springs and causes a whole bunch of damage, and she's, of course, the lawyer, kind of like the DA, you know, district attorney, for, you know, Radiator Springs. And, she, wants to get, Lightning to have to like repave the road, which of course ends up happening. And throughout the course of, the first movie, we see, them getting to know each other. She teases him quite a bit. And then, of course, eventually it's, he kind of earns her trust enough to where they go on this nice drive and she shows him, stuff around Radiator Springs and like, just like, all the cars kept passing by this place once the interstate showed up. And, you know, I broke down here and Doc fixed me up and I just wanted to, like repay the town. And that's why I've been here for the last however long. And, we see that with Sally and we see Lightning start to get a new look at the world and, as opposed to just driving fast in a circle and being, the one that wins the Piston Cup. But eventually he does, start to definitely flirt with Sally and he flirts with her initially anyway, but he starts to see her more, and that of course just goes into he sees more of who she is, and that of course just goes into his character development, which is of course the whole point of the movie. And he wants, he does the sweet thing where he, gets, all gussied up and everything to, show off Radiator Springs, and they have like the whole little, thing where all the cars are going for a little bit of a drive, where we've got, Lightning and Sally, and where they've got Flo and Felix, that are, the other couple of cars that's in the town and stuff, and we get like those nice little bits there where we see them. And, Sally, of course, ends up showing up at the race at the end of the movie. And, of course, they're rooting on, Lightning and everything, rooting for Lightning and, all that fun stuff. And into the second movie, we, of course, have it by then that Sally and Lightning are definitely, just full on dating at this point in time. And she's, of course, she messes with it by saying how much she likes, Francesco Bernoulli, which is just, just a fun way of torturing Lightning. I didn't throw in Mater and Holly shift well in this because I'm just like, I really don't care for them as a couple. I just don't. They're not a bad couple. They just, nothing ever else just shown with them, really. So I didn't put them in here. But Lightning and Sally, throughout the second movie, she's very supportive of Lightning. Same thing throughout the third movie in regards to Cars 3. She's kind of the one that helps, kick Lightning in the, in the tail and, the fender, kick him into gear when it comes to, getting out of the rut that he's in when it comes to his crash that he had at the beginning of the movie. She's kind of responsible for helping him get, back on his wheels. How many car puns can I throw in one section? You watch me. So we have those fun bits that happen there between the two of them, and she's just exceedingly supportive and everything. And she's perfectly happy with like sassing back at Lightning, which I just love anyway. Next up, we have Sheriff Woody and Bo Peep from the Toy Story franchise. So Bo and Woody have always just been my favorite couple out of the Toy Story franchise. I love the way that they just, flirt at the beginning of the first movie, and that continues into the second movie as well. How she's, very worried about Woody when he's gone. And, Buzz and the others have to go off and save him in the second movie. And, of course, the main one that definitely resolves and showing how much I really love Buzz, or not Buzz, Bo and Woody together is, of course, Toy Story 4. Because she's not in Toy Story 3, being like a tiny little flashback video, and even then, that she's not moving, and we don't get an interaction with her and Woody. And then, of course, in Toy Story 4, we have, of course, the moment at the beginning of the movie where we see, Woody trying to get trying to get Bo to stay, because, of course, he loves her, and he doesn't want her to leave. But she's like, I'm not Andy's toy, and now I have to go be with someone else that needs me, another kid that needs me. And, then, of course, several years later is when, of course, Woody and Bo meet again at the playground by the carnival. And it's it's the moment where they meet again. They're still both in toy form, and they're both just, they see each other, and it's just like I saw that in the theater. I'm like, yay! I feel like I know we saw Bo in the trailers, but it's still that great first moment where they're reunited. And then of course, they end up, getting much better reacquainted, once they're able to, move around again and talk. There's not too much else that happens at that point, but there's a lot that happens throughout the rest of the movie, where we see Woody and Bo. He finds out that she's had this whole adventure and all this other stuff that she's had to deal with, being in the antique store, and then going through all this, everything else, and becoming like this lost toy, and that gets just played with whenever she wants and everything, and like seeing how independent Bo has become. Not that Bo wasn't like exceedingly independent to begin with, but because she was very set up in trying to help take care of all the other toys and everything like that, and Woody and Andy and Molly's rooms. But it wasn't, this one is really where we get to see what she is capable of. Because in the first and the second movie, we didn't get to see a huge amount of what she was capable of. This one we definitely get to. And of course, we just see them, running around. And of course, at the end of the movie is, of course, Woody chooses to stay with Bo, to become a lost toy, because Bonnie doesn't really need him anymore. And he wants to go and be with Bo because he loves her, and that's what he chooses. And then of course in the kind of the short that they have after that, the Sparks short that they have, that is Lamplight, that I talked about before, that's just a nice one where you get to kind of see them at the end of the show, and he gets to hear fully her story about what happened, which is kind of nice. So that's what we have there for Bo and Woody. And then finally, we have the last couple that I have on this list. If I get the shirt up here. Eve and Wally. So, Eve, Wally are my favorite Pixar couple. I've loved them ever since I saw Wally. I love the way that it is basically the formula of badass woman with a laser gun and a dork that's trying to clean the planet. As I stated before, there's references here to River. Well, it's not a direct reference to like the Doctor and River song from Doctor Who, but there's comparisons that can be made. Wally is the small robot trying to save the planet Earth from an invasion of trash. And the Doctor continuously has to save Earth from alien invasions. Well, Eve is just literally awesome girl that shows up with a laser gun. And just like baffles him. Which is exactly what River does to the Doctor. I love that. I'm sorry, I love that comparison. But throughout the course of Wally, when Wally meets Eve, he just instantly finds her amazing, and he ends up trying to, impress her with so many other things, and like follows her around. And then of course, part of cements what happens is, of course, when she does see the plant and she has to put it inside of herself and put it in stasis, Wally then of course is trying to, he still tries to keep her safe. He, tries to do nice stuff for her, wrap her up in the Christmas lights and, try to do nice things, and keeps wanting to just to hold her hand. And then, of course, when she gets, taken into space, he frickin' follows her. He follows her. I love that. And he just, follows her all the way through the ship and everything like that until she's, back to kind of being normal. And, he tries to help her so much with the plant and everything. And he knows that that's what he needs to do to help her, because that's part of her mission. That's her prerogative, her objective. And we just get that whole bit that happens, which I just find adorable, where it's just the two of them running through the ship. And then, of course, we have the adorable bit where it's the two of them outside the ship, and Eve is just flying around, and Wally has the fire extinguisher that he's using to, propel himself through space. And we get the great little space dance between the two of them that's being narrated by the computer explaining to him what dancing is, which I just love, explaining to the captain what dancing is. And we get this great bit there. And then, of course, there's just everything that happens with Wally and the Crushers and all that, and how Wally almost gets destroyed and, is still trying to help, save humanity. And it's not because he's trying to save humanity because it's the right thing to do. I mean, that's probably part of it. But it's also he's trying to save humanity because that's part of what Eve's job is. And so it's that type of thing of following in those footsteps, of trying to protect her and trying to help her. And of course, Wally, of course, gets crushed by, when they're trying to get, the boot into where it needs to be to, send everybody back home, to send everybody back to Earth, the boot with the plant in it. And of course, they, light speed travel back home. And Eve, of course, just rushes Wally out of there. And it's just, just like completely and like putting them all back together again with all the different new parts and everything. And, his memory chip is what's, the main thing. But, she has to fix everything. And then he just goes back to factory settings. And it takes a short bit with Eve, the spark from her for him to realize, for him to remember everything. And he does. And then, of course, they just get to be together, which I just love. And, hopefully whatever future version of, the world that it ends up turning into, hopefully that is something where, Wally and Eve can just be happy together. Hopefully. I hope. So that's what we have here. Those are my Pixar couples, non-human Pixar couples in order, from least favorite to most favorite. Still like the ones that are, I still like Marlon and Coral and stuff, but just Wally and Eve are my favorite. It was going back and forth between Wally and Eve and, Woody and Bo. It was going back and forth between those, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Eve and Wally just barely passed them over. Not by a lot, but by just a little bit. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. This should be going up after Valentine's Day, I believe. Depending on how I schedule it with stuff. So I hope everybody had a happy Valentine's Day. And even if it was just you on your own eating chocolate, I hope you had a nice day too. Or watching romances, or some other thing you did, or spent Valentine's Day with your family or your friends, or whatever the case is. I hope it went well. So have a nice rest of your day. Bye.